in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act, and we also tape our meetings for accuracy in preparing our minutes. Do I hear a motion to adjourn executive session and formally begin our open session?
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Powers. Do I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Green. Are there any questions or comments, Board? Hearing none, all in favor of opening this meeting, please say aye. Anyone opposed? We are now formally in a meeting, so we can get going. At this time, I'd like to call on Mr. Anderson to give our invocation.
Let us pray. God, you not only give wisdom to leaders, you are wisdom itself. Give the school board wisdom to steer the school district on the right path. Bless our children, their families, and the decisions we make on their behalf. May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be pleasing before you tonight. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. That was beautiful. At this time, Board, you have an agenda in front of you. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Dr. Powers, do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Anderson. I have a second. Board, are there any questions or comments regarding the agenda? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor of the agenda as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries and it is unanimous. Board, in front of you are the minutes of the December 18th, 2018 board meeting and the January 8th, 2019 board workshop. You have been provided copies of those minutes for both of those meetings in your packet. Other than the corrections that have already been provided, are there any additions or corrections to the minutes of either one of those meetings?
Okay. On page 3, under item 8.0, it just says there were 10 recommendations. We just need to clarify that those were certified recommendations.
Okay. Good correction. Anything else?
Yes, there are also 2 page 8s. We just need to take 1 page out because page 9 is also page 8.
Okay. Anything else, Ms. Garris?
Yes, and at the end of the agenda, there are no items 15.0 through 18.0 that include the second executive session.
Okay. Board members, did you hear those corrections? We will make those corrections. Anything else? So, Board, I need a motion to approve the minutes amended as per Ms. Garris's recommendations. Do I have that motion? Ms. Garris, would you like to make that motion, please?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Go ahead and say, I make a motion to amend the agenda as presented.
I make a motion to amend the agenda or the minutes as presented.
Okay. Do you have a second? Second. Okay, thank you, Ms. Green. Any other questions or comments, Board? We will accept the minutes as amended. Let's go ahead and vote on that. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries and it is unanimous. Okay. Reports and action items, if needed, from executive session. Do I hear a motion to approve 3 certified recommendations for the 2018-2019 school year?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the superintendent's recommendation for 3 certified positions for the 2019-2020 school year. Or is it
2018-2019.
okay for the 2018-2019 school year?
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Are there any questions or comments regarding those 3 certified positions? We'll take a vote now. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries and it is unanimous. On the architectural selection contractual matter, an architectural selection contractual matter was discussed in executive session. At this time, there is no action required as a result of that discussion. Board, we also heard a student matter regarding student A. Board members, we heard in executive session. Do I have a motion regarding student matter A?
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the recommendation of administration to approve the waiver to exempt student A from the physical education requirement.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Powers. Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Oswald. Are there any questions or comments regarding that student matter?
Ms. Smith, I would like to move that we table that until our next meeting, please. I'm not prepared to vote on that at this time. I would like more information.
Okay. Let's see, I'm not 100% sure how to do that at this point because we have a motion and a second.
Great.
So I think we need to let's vote on the tabling of the matter, and if we have a consensus on that, we will table it. So Ms. Green has made a motion to table the matter regarding student matter A. And she has made a motion. Do I have a second regarding tabling that matter?
A second.
Okay, we have a second from Ms. Garris. Are there any questions or comments before we vote? Okay, all in favor of tabling that matter, I'm going to do a vote by hand. Please raise your right hand if you want to table the matter based on the recommendation by Ms. Green. Say 1, 2, 3. Okay, all in favor of not tabling the matter, raise your hand. Okay, we have 4. So at this point, we will not table the matter. We will go back to the original motion. So we have a motion on the floor, and forgive me, Dr. Powers, read that motion again. Let's go back to that motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the recommendation of administration to approve the waiver to exempt student A from physical education requirements.
Okay, thank you. And we have a second from, let's see, was the second from Mr. Anderson on that one originally?
Oswald.
Mr. Oswald, thank you. Help me on that. Okay, are there any questions or comments at this point? Okay, this is a vote to waive the recommendation. So if you are in favor of waiving the recommendation, we're going to do a hand vote again. Raise your right hand if you are in favor of waiving that recommendation. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we have 4. If you are opposed, raise your right hand. Okay. 5. It was 5. Okay, thank you. We have 2 opposed. So the motion carries, and we will waive that student recommendation. That requirement. Thank you. We will waive that student requirement. Thank you for putting up with me on all that. Oh, that was a lot. Okay, now we're going to do something fun. We are going to go to honors and achievements, and we're going to ask Dr. Little to step down and present certificates.
Madam Chair, before I step down, before I step down to honor our staff and students, I'd like to take a point of privilege to make just a few comments. January is National School Board Recognition Month. I also am having a hard time speaking. A time to celebrate our Board of Trustees and their service to this district. The theme of this year's celebration is Local Voice, People's Choice, and highlights the fact that our school boards are elected by Lexington County School District 1 residents. These voters choose high-quality individuals to ensure the success of the schools that their students attend. The 7 individuals before you advocate for quality schools and equitable public education across the district and make sure that each child has the same opportunity for success no matter where they live in our district. They work as a team to set policy that allows us to manage the present and map the future for Lexington District 1. They attend an endless string of meetings and school functions, read and study countless reports, agendas, and proposals, and make a host of difficult decisions. They give freely of their personal and professional time to better our schools, and they receive no monetary compensation for their sacrifice. Considering this district occupies 48% of the county's 750 square miles and stretches from the banks of Lake Murray to the county's southern border with Aiken County, that is a real sacrifice. It becomes even more impressive when you realize that the district serves more than 26,000 pre-K through grade 12 students and employs nearly 4,000 employees, not including substitutes, and maintains 30 schools, an adult education program, an alternative learning program, a full-service cafeteria program, and a fleet of more than 160 buses. They volunteer to do this, and they make a 4-year commitment because they believe it is the right thing to do. So tonight, on behalf of the students, employees, and parents of Lexington District 1, I would like to say thank you for your service to the district and empowering each student to design the future. So please join me in expressing appreciation to Board Chair Cindy Smith, Vice Chair Anne-Marie Green, Secretary Dr. Brent Powers, members Mike Anderson, Jada Garris, Dr. Kyle Guyton, and Tim Oswald. And now I will go down front.
Okay. While he's walking, I'll walk you through the process. We celebrate successes of many kinds during the honors and achievements portion of our monthly board meeting. We recognize the significant achievements of our students and employees, as well as the contributions and partnerships with our business partners and community organizations. Tonight's honorees include elementary state honor choir singers, national board certified teachers, grant winners, growing our fine arts offerings, and many others. We feature all of this in proof positive. Let me find my copy, which is right here. And if you did not pick one up when you signed in tonight, please do so on your way out. They make a great keepsake for our honorees and their families. In fact, you're welcome to take extra copies if you feel led. You should know that if you try to follow along in the newsletter tonight, you might need to skip back and forth from page to page, that it's not always in the same order as the presentations. And finally, we ask that you stay until the very end so that we can recognize all of our recipients. And then at that point, we will give you a few minutes to step out unless you feel led to continue the night with us, because we will be up here staying on course. And Dr. Little is already down, so when you hear your name, we want you to come up and stand with Dr. Little, and he likes to take pictures, so we're going to take some pictures. Well, the first one is an exciting one. We begin tonight with Lexington High senior Allie Richardson, competing as one of 27. And I love her crown. Competing as one of 27 contestants from across the state, Allie won the Miss South Carolina Teen USA 2019 pageant. She plans to use her time representing South Carolina to bring awareness to the issues surrounding depression, a cause close to her heart. Allie serves as Lexington High's student body vice president and the National Honor Society chapter officers. We will cheer her on as she journeys on to Miss Teen USA this summer. So we are all excited. We want her to go, Allie.
We were practicing the wave. I'm
Oh.
sorry.
Well, show him how to take a good picture, Allie. Thank you, Allie. Okay, now this is exciting too. 2 robotics teams from Meadow Glen Middle used ingenuity to get into the winner's circle this season. The Gator Gears team consists of all female competitors. So when I call your name, please join Dr. Little. First of all, we'd like to call up Sydney Davis, Sachi Lal, Heer Panchal, Serena Patel, Anushka Sharma, Celeste Sullivan, and Rebecca Yu. I love their shirts and their bandanas. They look so cute. The team earned a trip to the international tournament by finishing second in the race for the South Carolina First Lego League Champions Award at the state tournament. And where will that international trip be? Arkansas. Oh, fun. Knowing their robot would need to complete multiple missions during competition, the Gator Gears used a front-loading attachment system for efficiency. Congratulations, Gator Gears. Okay, now the ladies had their turn. Let's give the gentlemen a turn. A second Meadow Glen team brought home a trophy from the state tournament. The RoboGators won first place for Best Mechanical Design. The RoboGators include Sam Kinsella, Drew Carter, Aiden Keenan, Ratish Korapati, Ritvik Korapati, Ryan Paraday, and Arab Rastagoji. Did I get them pretty close? No, I must not have. Oh, I tried. The boys didn't stop making changes to their robot until it could operate at a high level. They scored big points with the judges for the final robot, which balanced speed, accuracy, and power. Congratulations to both the ladies and the gentlemen for these wonderful robotics. Yes, and we'd like to congratulate the coaches for both of those teams too, and thank you for coming tonight as well. We're now going to move to the choir room, and we're going to recognize a group of talented elementary singers. 16 Lexington District 1 students successfully auditioned for and made a statewide choir organized by the South Carolina Music Educators Association. They are part of the Elementary Division Honor Choir. Those earning a spot include Deerfields Elementary, Madden Campbell. Is Madden here? There she is. Chloe Espenson. She's from Deer. Did I say that correctly? Close enough? Lexington Elementary's Gavin Boozer, Olivia Ketchum, and Ava King. Meadow Glen Elementary's Elena Govias, thank you. Midway Elementary's Taylor Glover and Morgan Nesmith. New Providence Elementary's Sophia Bates and Camilla Uresta. Pleasant Hill Elementary's Roman Evans. Rocky Creek Elementary's Olivia Redden. And White Knoll Elementary's Allie Kitt, Grace Kwaku, Alan Moore, and Kate Schnabel. This group of students is the largest group of elementary honor choir members the district has ever had. As a testament to their hard work, these students will sing at the South Carolina Music Educators Association Professional Development Conference in February. And we are so proud of all of you for making this choir. I don't know if you know this, but Dr. Little's father is a music teacher, so music is near and dear to his heart. And he might sing a little bit too. I'm not going to do that.
We got a lot of people here. Y'all are very famous, so you got to smile.
I know.
Hold on. You got to smile again. Everybody re-smile. You got to re-smile. Relax and re-smile.
Okay. Everybody good?
All right, we're good. Nice.
Okay. Our next group of students served as South Carolina ambassadors this fall during the International Day of the Girl Child. The Grace, Peace, and Sisterhood group includes Lexington Middle's James E. Davis and Jamie Johnson. Are they here? Meadow Glen Middle's Sarah Bennett, Jasmine Clark, Alana Singleton, Sydney Smith, and Layla Trapp were part of that group. And River Bluff High's Tamisha Young represented River Bluff. We would like to invite Lexington Middle School counselor Stacy Clark and co-leader Dominique Sawyer, school counselor at Meadow Glen Middle School, as well as Dr. Toby Jenkins Henry. Dr. Jenkins Henry, Associate Professor of Instruction and Teacher Education at the University of South Carolina, is here tonight as well. She actually selected the Grace, Peace, and Sisterhood group to represent South Carolina at the United Nations Girls Speak Out Summit. Let's thank them for all their work with this organization. Yeah, thank you. Okay, looking ahead to our exciting summer camps, let us bring up Michelle Lucas, Career Specialist at Lexington Technology Center. Michelle here? I'm not sure. Oh, there she comes. She was hidden behind all the photographers. She represents District Career Specialist Julie Rochek tonight since Julie could not be with us. She is here? No. Ms. Rochek obtained a $1,500 grant from Fabricators and Manufacturers Association International to offer a second year of the Nuts, Bolts, and Thingamajigs summer camp at the Technology Center. 20 campers participated last year, learned how much manufacturing jobs have changed in recent years, heard from guest speakers across manufacturing, and took field trips to our local industries. We thank Mrs. Rochek and Mrs. Lucas for working hard to continue this opportunity for our skillful students. Now we proudly recognize teachers who earned for the first time or renewed for another time their national board certification. Before we bring them up, let me tell you a little bit about this achievement. Created by teachers, this certification process uses national board standards, allows fellow teachers to review applications, and takes into account multiple factors of effective instruction. Candidates must reflect on their classroom methods and their mastery of subject material, as well as submit an extensive portfolio with videos of teaching, lesson plans, and student work samples. As you can see, these teachers put in quite a lot of work to secure this certification. First, we want to take a photograph of our teachers earning their certification for the first time. Those first timers include Lake Murray Elementary's Kristen Bodmer. Is she here? And Jillian Stratton. Meadow Glen Middle's Cliff Roberts. Mr. Roberts here? Yeah. Pelion High's Ashton Paget. Pelion Middle's Shelley Martin. Is she here? Pleasant Hill Elementary's Donna Spivey and Erica Sweatman. And River Bluffs High's Emmeline Lewis and Andrea Moore. Congratulations to these first timers. Thank you. Teachers renewing their certification with us tonight include Carolina Springs Elementary's Misty Johnson. Misty here? Gilbert Elementary's Heather Gresham. Gilbert Primary's April Mendenhall, and Debbie Oswald. You might notice the last name of a board member up here that might know Miss Oswald. Lexington Elementary's Mary Ashley Rodriguez. Lexington High's Sherry Corley, Dana Crowley, and Kimberly Watson. Lexington Middle's Patricia Lample. Lexington Technology Center's Esther Abney. Meadow Glen Elementary's Jamie Socks. Meadow Glen Middle's Luda Hutchison. Midway Elementary's Tammy Sharp. New Providence Elementary's Gregory Blaschka and Haley LaMarche. Pelion Elementary's Chris Pratt and Ruth Ann Treaster. Pelion High's Tracy Holcomb and Gwendolyn Wingard. Pleasant Hill Middle, Shannon Kennedy, Lori McKelvey, and Steve Woodyard. River Bluff High's Carly Myers, Kenzie Neer, Carolyn Newt. White Knoll Elementary's Katie Harmon and Jennifer McPherson. And White Knoll Middle's Deborah Adams, Stephanie Blackman, Deirdre Foote, Candace Lett, and Marlene Neal. And before you give a applause for these, I just want to stress to you the amount of work our teachers do to get this certification and to renew this certification. And it is just benefits our children so much. So we just want to thank you for all the work behind these certifications. Next, we welcome teachers and students from Deerfield Elementary. Deerfield Elementary celebrated earning Lighthouse School status this past December. Deerfield joined the global Franklin Covey, the Leader in Me Lighthouse School Network after 3 years using the proven leadership model and conducting a self-evaluation. To achieve this impressive goal, they crafted a leadership environment that challenges and supports student growth, taught and reinforced the 7 habits, and invited students to take on meaningful leadership roles. Tonight, we want to congratulate 2 teams who put in extra hours to make this achievement possible: the Student Lighthouse team and the Staff Lighthouse team. First, our Student Lighthouse team, we'd like for you to come forward, is Taiwan Alston, Layla Bateman, Caleb Leakey, Ansley McClendon, and Malia Price. So let's thank these students for serving as leaders at Deerfield Elementary School. Thank you, guys. Okay. Now, do you want the students to stand to the side so they can get a picture with the staff too? Or, okay, so if y'all will just kind of, which way? Okay. Now we're going to call up the staff. We're going to call up Olga Brown, Brian French, Lacey Henson, Kelly McElwain, Bethany Pato, Haley Prickett, Beth Tester, Shanika Waring, Alice Wilson, Principal Jan Malone, and Assistant Principals Adam Diamond and Kelly Middleton. So y'all all come up. We'll take a staff picture and then we'll take a blended picture. Has it got a lot of money in it? I love your shirts. Thank you. Congratulations. Okay. Now we have 2 schools returning us after receiving additional grant funding in the arts. Let's bring up our grant writers from Pleasant Hill Middle. I think this is your 3rd trip up here. So Miss Shannon Kennedy, Lori McKelvey, Jessica Robbins, and Mickey Summerall, and White Knoll Middle, Deborah Adams, and Jolene Walter. These schools received arts and basic curriculum grants to continue providing excellent arts education and experiences. Okay, y'all get ready because these are some great numbers. Pleasant Hill Middle received $11,000 in grants, and White Knoll Middle received $8,500 in grants. So let's. With these designated funds, schools can invite artists and residents, provide professional development for their art department teachers, and include resources for arts education and core subject areas. Thank you so much for working so hard to obtain these grants for your staff and students, because this is definitely going beyond. So thank y'all. We appreciate you guys. Hey, we always enjoy recognizing our schools and staff for what they do to promote inclusion. Would Aletha Corley from Lake Murray Elementary come forward? Is she here? She recently helped her school obtain funding for Special Olympics activities. As a unified champion school, Lake Murray provides opportunities for students with and without intellectual disabilities to play sports together and build friendships. The school received $400 to use for transportation and sports equipment, as well as to purchase resources to further advocate for unified champion participants. We want to thank Ms. Corley for advocating for her students. Okay, I don't think it will be difficult to find an extra chaperone for this next event. Forts Pond Elementary's Leslie Burnett received a Target field trip grant to carry on a sweet and sticky tradition with students. The $700 grant covers the cost of a field trip to Cease Strawberry Farm. This field trip gives all Forts Pond first graders an opportunity to experience firsthand the life cycle of a strawberry. Students learn about strawberry production, enjoy a hayride out to the fields, and even pick a bucket of berries to take home. Thank you for ensuring this fun and that this educational tradition continues. Thank you, Ms. Burnett. Now we're going to move on to the Walmart Foundation Community Grant Program. A tradition of exciting student performances will continue at Carolina Springs Middle. Theater arts teacher Jennifer Simmons received a Walmart Foundation Community Grant, allowing students to bring stories to life on stage. The $1,000 grant covers production costs, includes materials for sets and props, costumes, fabric, and more. Funding directly benefits more than 200 theater students, as well as other students, parents, and community members who attend the shows. We salute Ms. Simmons for choosing reusable materials that students can use for years to come. Congratulations, and we look forward to the next show. Is she here, Ms. Simmons? And we also want to say a thank you to Walmart. This is one of our favorite times. We get to invite Ms. Julie Washburn, who is our Executive Director of the Lexington District 1 Educational Foundation, to introduce repeat guests who we always love having join us, Michelin and W.P. Ross. I'm going to turn it over to you, Ms. Washburn.
Thank you, Dr. Little. I appreciate the assistance. Thanks for having me here this evening, and it's exciting for all of you who are award winners. And we're going to, I think, wrap up the award section with the foundation awards that we're very grateful to be able to announce periodically here at the Board of Trustees meetings. Before we begin, though, I do want to acknowledge the generosity of Michelin itself. The Lexington plant is extremely generous to the Educational Foundation and to our district in a variety of ways. In addition to providing grants twice a year to our teachers, they also have funded a STEM lab at Meadow Glen Middle School. They support foundation events on a regular basis. They serve as mentors, their employees, at Red Bank and Saxcatha elementary schools. And then they also most recently gave a huge $30,000 robotics grants to the foundation to support 5 of our teams in the district. So they continue to be amazing corporate partners, and we're very grateful for their continued generosity in that regard. But I want to introduce Claude Lightsey. He is actually here to represent Michelin tonight. He is technically the area personnel manager, but serves as the Golden Apple administrator for Michelin. And he and I work closely together to receive grant applications, but Claude has the joy of making decisions on those and awarding the grants twice a year. But these are biannually. They're up to $250 given to teachers who apply for innovative educational programs, and they're things kind of outside of the norm that give opportunities to their students. So they're great experiences for our kids and result in a huge benefit to them. So I'm going to have Claude come up and actually announce the award winners, and Dr. Little and I are going to get to congratulate them.
Thank you, Julie. Pleasure to be here tonight in this room. What a room this is. And what a parade of progress and excitement from all of these students and teachers here, showing their efforts and being recognized for it. It's just marvelous to be here. I am here to award these Michelin Golden Apple teacher grants, and it's for teachers who have shown insight and taken the initiative to try to bring innovation into their classroom, and that's something that we really appreciate in Michelin, and I'm thrilled to be a part of that recognition for these teachers and for what they are trying to do to make improvements in their classroom to improve the learning environment. So I would like to start, if you will just come up, and we will recognize you and pose for pictures here all together as a group. To start with, Amber Bible from the Alternate Educational Services. Her project, is Amber here? Her project was about student recognition and reinforcing positive behaviors and academic results. The next person is Deborah Marcolini. Is Deborah here? Hey, Deborah. She is from Lexington Elementary. Her subject was reading, and she has purchased books, plans to purchase books to decrease my volume here. No, increase the classroom library inventory. Next is Eliana Soto. Eliana? No. Eliana has a foreign language skills project to enhance language with authentic cultural materials. Next is Jamie Blakely from Oak Grove Elementary. Jamie here tonight? All right, Jamie's project had to do with, oh, there's Jamie. Very good. Her project was surrounding reading and matching just right level non-fictional reading material for the students. Next is Katie Alexander from Pelion Elementary. Katie's project subject was mathematics, and her project was to bring online math resource to the classroom in a website. Next is Lee Johnson from Pleasant Hill Elementary. Is Lee here? Lee's project was in mathematics, incorporating math into other subjects for cross-discipline approach. Very good. Next is Rocky Burns from Red Bank Elementary. Rocky's project was to improve recess equipment access and storage, to improve the access and storage of the equipment needed for a recess. So very good. Next is Paige Jurgensen from Rocky Creek Elementary. Paige's project was portable seating in the classroom to improve the engagement through allowing students to move and group together in learning groups. Next is Kim Lewis from Saxe-Gotha Elementary. Kim's project was had to do with social skill building, educational games, and social skill building activities. Next is Don Sarensen. Comes Don from White Knoll Elementary. His grant was in mathematics, teaching mathematics with balloons. Okay, yes. All right. Got to have fun in the classroom, too. The next is Suzanne Brooks from White Knoll Middle. Suzanne, there she is. Hers was surrounding math skills with Legos, using Legos to increase engagement with hands-on incentives. And finally, Russ Conrath from White Knoll Middle. Russ's project was also in reading, purchasing books to read and to discuss in groups. So these are 12 of our teachers who have taken the time out to propose new ideas and to write up a grant, and they are recipients to bring innovation to the classroom. And these 12 instructors, teachers, they are bringing effects to over 1,500 students according to their grants and their efforts. So let's give them a hand.
I'm also very pleased to have one more group of awards to recognize tonight. Another very loyal corporate supporter of the foundation is the W.P. Rawl company and its family, the Rawl family. Normally, I would introduce Susan Clifton to join us tonight, but unfortunately, she had a death in the family, and she said to please send her regrets, especially to the award winners here tonight, that she wouldn't personally be able to be here and present these, but asked me to present these on her behalf. But these grants are actually awarded twice a year as well. They're grants that were originally intended to enhance a student's knowledge of diet and nutrition through a live garden or other type of plant project. And I think the teachers and the schools have been very innovative in the ways they've used the funds. It's brought some beauty to the schools as well as some educational experiences for our students. They actually give away each semester, basically, $500 to basically create a new garden, or $250 to sustain an existing garden. But in addition, the company has a family scholarship named in honor of Susan's parents. So they continue to be supportive. Their children, many of the Rawl company members themselves have grown up in Lexington and been educated here. So we definitely appreciate their continued support of the foundation and our district as a whole. But I'm gonna actually have the joy now of recognizing the award winners. So if y'all would, please, when I recognize you, just come up and we're gonna, Dr. Little, do you mind passing out certificates? Thank you. Okay, our first award winner is Barbara Johnson with the Alternative Educational Services. Focus. She has a Barbara has a courtroom garden that's going to fund a new vegetable garden in an area that's really been neglected in the school. The kids will be involved, or the students rather, not children, I guess, will be involved in planting and harvesting and keeping the garden beautiful for the individuals around there to use it. And with Carolina Springs Elementary, Anna Faust, if she is here tonight, if she would join us. or her garden actually is to sustain one that's already existing within the school, and it's particularly geared towards the special education students. They're going to plant fruits, vegetables, and herbs, and have peer buddies that work with the students. So a neat idea there. If Lizzie Seisloff is here with Forts Pond, is Lizzie here this evening? They actually want a grant to sustain a garden that's currently exists and that will support the STEM classes. It's actually classes using the garden STEM lesson and curriculum planning guide. They're going to build a mini greenhouse, which will allow them to plant things not only when it's January and nothing grows outside, but to be able to use it year-round. So that'll be a huge benefit to the school and to the students. If Jean McKinney is here from Meadow Glen Elementary School, is Jean here? She won a garden grant for a new garden, actually, to create it for the school. In addition, Casey Davis is the co-leader. Is Casey here? But this garden will present unique learning opportunities for the school, and the kids will work directly in actually a 4-bed garden area, and we'll plant edible plants, and it will be cultivated by the 3rd through 5th graders. So neat experience for them. Is Erica Schumpert here with New Providence Elementary? Erica actually has a grant for sustaining a garden, and the Little Green Thumbs group of students, graders, will actually work in the garden. They will have direct access to plants most of the year and learn about not only gardening, but can use it for math and other types of areas, educational areas. How about Christopher Johnson with Pillion Middle School? Is Chris? Okay. Won a grant for a new garden at PMS, and his class, he's the agricultural science teacher, but they'll work with the after-school program to build a new garden in one of their courtyards, and it will provide a place for teachers to hold class and to allow students to read in that area as well. It will include vegetables and fruit-bearing plants, as well as flowers, ground coverings, and other plants, to create a beautiful and useful courtyard space. What about Lee Tost with Saxcatha Elementary? Is Lee here? Lee won a garden grant that 4th grade students will get to benefit from. They're actually going to grow a variety of foods. We'll see if you kids like all these things. Collard greens and radishes and kale and broccoli. So they're going to do some fun things, and the grant will also be used to purchase things that they need to basically go in and get weeds out, to keep the garden beautiful too. So trowels, hose, knee pads, and aprons. So we want to congratulate all of our winners. Of these 7 grants, about 1,300 students will benefit from them. So it has a large impact, and we greatly appreciate the Rawl family and the company supporting us in this way. So.
While they're taking their pictures, the board would just like to recognize Michelin, and we would like to recognize WP Rawl. This is just a small piece of what they do for Lexington 1. Michelin has a mentoring program, and they actually work one-on-one with some of our students. They also have provided money for STEM labs and for our robotics teams. And then the WP Rawl family, they work closely with our Future Farmers of America program. And it takes a partnership, and we really appreciate, Claude, what you do and what the Rawl family does for us. And Julie, thank you for bringing that to our attention. So let's give them a big round of applause. Well, we want to thank you for taking the time to be with us tonight, and we just want to thank all of you for all you're doing to make Lexington 1 so successful. We're so proud of each and every one of you. Honorees, when you leave the meeting, head to your left and out in the main lobby where a member of our communications office will actually give you your certificate, and you are invited to stay, but if you'd like to step out, we'll give you a few minutes to step out, and thank you once again for coming. how many?
6 months, 9 months.
Are you okay?
Yes, we do. Is it okay to call your office, or is it better to email? My regular phone. Seven six zero 6840. Very good. Thank you.
Swelling up, I can feel it.
Okay, board, if y'all can come on back, we're ready to get started.
Yep.
We're going to go ahead and get started, even though everybody's not here, because I've got a long thing I have to read, and they have heard it before. So I'm going to go ahead and start reading, so we'll kind of knock some time off the clock. So thank you for staying. It looks like we have a nice crowd. We're now up to 9.0, which is citizens' participation. And the Lexington County School District 1 Board of Trustees provides a time for citizens' participation at each regular board meeting. There are a few guidelines, of course. First, in order to speak, you must be a parent or legal guardian of a student in Lexington County School District 1 or a resident and taxpayer of the district. Second, each speaker has 3 minutes to speak. Third, you may comment on an agenda item, school operations, programs, policies, or other matters of concerns. However, you may not speak about specific individuals, whether students or staff. There are other ways to bring situations like that to the board's attention. We want to give everyone who came here tonight a chance to speak. For that reason, board members will not reply to an individual's remarks. This is your time for you to talk to us. And if someone makes the point or points you came to make before you, if you could just state that you agree with the previous speakers and not restate every point, that would actually help us. We also ask that you not clap or make any comments either while an individual is speaking or after a speaker finishes, as that slows down the process. If you wanted to speak tonight, we ask that you fill out a card that will give us your name and address for our records. Those cards were on the sign-in table, and I have received one. Is there anyone else that would like to speak besides the one person on this card? If so, we'll be glad to give you a card. And if let's see, so no one's going to speak. So as stated earlier, you should not expect us to reply to your remarks. Although we may ask you a question as a board, we will not take any action tonight in response to issues that you raised during citizens' participation. So at this time, I'd like to welcome Dr. Billy Michaud. He's going to discuss the topic of tutoring. He lives at 158 Mansfield Circle in Lexington, and he is a grandfather of students at Oak Grove Elementary, or a student, one student. So welcome, Dr. Michaud. Come on up.
Okay, I have just recently been made aware of the board's policy on teachers tutoring their own students, and I would like to request that the board reconsider that policy. The policy currently states that a teacher may tutor any student after school for pay if that student is not in her own or his own classroom. This policy deprives some of the most vulnerable students of the help that they can get most easily because of the rapport that they have built with their own teachers. Some of these teachers do not establish rapport easily, and once they're established with a teacher, it's very hard for them to move on. It also conveys a message of distrust to the teachers in your district when you tell them that they cannot do that for the reasons that I'm going to state later. The policy statement says that these restrictions are to assure that all students receive reasonable assistance without a fee, and that a teacher is not put into a position where he or she might have a conflict of interest. I understand both of those concerns, but a blanket sweeping policy to address two unlikely occurrences seems rather extreme to me. First of all, no one understands a teacher's needs as clearly as a student's needs as clearly as his teacher. Another teacher would be sure that he is teaching the correct subject matter only if he or she is in touch with the correct teacher. This constant interaction would put both unnecessary work on both teachers. And if a child's educational welfare is the department's major concern, then the district should do nothing to hamper that achievement. I do not know if the current policy was put in place because of an incident that might have occurred or because the board is being overly cautious. In either case, to institute a policy based on one incident or out of fear that teachers cannot act professionally shows a lack of trust in a cadre of teachers that the district has hired to teach our children and grandchildren. If you entrust our kids to them, then you should trust them also. I would respectfully ask that you reconsider this policy, knowing that any incident can be dealt with individually, and showing that the board has faith in the Lexington 1 faculty to ask with fairness and impartiality. I would also ask respectfully that a teacher who is not tutoring because he or she was not aware of this policy not be forced to drop his or her students in mid-quarter until a replacement can be found or until the policy is reconsidered. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Michoud. I think if the board's okay with this, Dr. Talley is our Chief Instructional Officer. Dr. Talley's sitting right there with the black dress on. We're going to ask her to look into this policy and into your suggestions and report back to the board. Dr. Talley, would you mind doing that, please? Okay, thank you. And thank you for bringing that to our attention. Okay. At this time, we're going to move to item 10.0, which are action items, and we will be taking votes. The first one is the adoption of the South Carolina School Board member ethical principles. And let's see, I had a copy right here. The South Carolina School Board Association has a code of conduct for the ethics across the state, and they ask that all school board members read through it and sign on to it and adopt that as part of their principles in governing serving as a governor on the school board. So board members, SCSBA has asked boards across the state to adopt the following ethical principles. We always have. Do I hear a motion to adopt the SCSBA school board member ethical principles as presented?
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the South Carolina School Board Association's South Carolina Board Members Code of Ethics as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Powers. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Board members, is there any questions, comments, or discussion regarding the Code of Ethics before we take a vote? Okay, hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor of adopting the SCSBA School Board Member Ethical Principles as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries, and it is unanimous. And at this time, I'm going to ask our secretary if he will give us instructions for signing it.
So each of you have a copy in front of you just for your reference, but we have it behind us, and we as board members will sign this, and it will sit in our boardroom in perpetuity.
We need to take a picture, so we need you to pass it up and down now.
Okay.
Take a group photo for the School Boards Association after we sign it.
We can do that.
So we need to sign it and pass it up down now, and then we'll take a picture.
Thank you, Dr. Powers. You are such a good board secretary.
Thank you.
Ms. Smith, while Dr. Powers is signing and getting us organized, I was at the State House today during the School Board Association's press conference, just recognizing School Board Appreciation Month, and Senator Greg Hembry of Horry County, who is the chair of the Senate Education Committee now, commended South Carolina school boards across the state for adopting these ethical principles since 1986. I mean, he actually mentioned that he thinks these came about in response to lost trust, which he thought was funny because lost trust was about the legislature, but the school boards acted just to affirm that we do adhere to ethical principles and that we do that statewide.
Yeah.
So,
well, thank you, Ms. Green. That's good to know, and I can assure everyone this board takes the ethics of this board seriously, and we do everything within our power to maintain the laws of South Carolina and the laws of the United States, because those laws protect our students, and that's what we're here. We're here to protect our students. So thank you for that. Board, items 10.2 are the student travel request as presented by Dr. Talley. We'll get the motion on the floor, and then we'll open it up for discussion and let Dr. Talley update us on anything we may need to know. Do I hear a motion to approve 21 student travel requests as presented?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve 21 student travel requests as recommended by administration.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Green. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Powers. Are there any questions, comments, or discussions regarding those 21 student travel requests? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor of approving the 21 student travel requests, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries, and it is unanimous. But board, in front of you, you have the second reading. As you remember last month, we presented policy IHBA, the Special Education Programs for Handicapped and Disabled Students, and Dr. Talley presented that to us. I'm going to go ahead and get the motion on the floor, and then we will discuss this, and then we'll take a vote. Do I hear a motion to approve policy IHBA, Special Education Programs for Handicapped Disabled Students for second reading?
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt, this doesn't make any sense. Okay, Please find that for the second reading, revision of policy IHBA, special education programs for handicapped disabled students. I move that the board approve policy IHBA, special education programs for handicapped disabled students. I think that first sentence was extra. So I move that we adopt policy IHBA as presented.
Right, and it is an amended policy, so I think that's what they were stating, that we are amending the original policy. So board, we have a motion on the floor from Ms. Green. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. I now have a discussion. Are there any questions or comments regarding policy IHBA for special education programs? Okay, hearing none. Did you have something, Dr. Guyton?
I did have one question just for a point of clarity. If there is a certificate of appointment for guardianship that is upheld by the probate court, does that student then have to go through this same process, or does that guardianship, I guess, supersede this policy? Does that make sense?
I'm not sure I understand your question. The policy would not be superseded by guardianship. We have to abide by the policy. Is that what you're asking?
I guess my question would be, do they have to go through this process if guardianship through the probate court has already been established?
I'm looking in the audience. Dr. Balo, if I may defer to our Director of Special Ed, she can probably answer that better than I can.
I assume you're talking about the process of special education?
I guess in any aspect of guardianship, be it education, healthcare, whatever it may be.
Under the state guidelines for special education, that if they have legal guardianship, that person is identified as the parent and has the rights of the parent under IDEA.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that helps.
Okay. Any other questions, board? Good point, Dr. Guyton. Thank you. And since we now have a motion and a second on the floor, we'll take a vote. All in favor of adopting this amended policy, IHBA, special education programs for handicapped disabled students, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries and it is unanimous. We are now going on to second reading of policy IKFC and IKFC-R, employability credentials. This is once again presented by Dr. Talley. We're going to go ahead and get a motion on the floor, and then if we have any questions or comments, we'll open up the floor. Do I hear a motion to approve policy IKFC and IKFC-R, employability credential for second reading?
Madam Chair, in each of our packets is policy IKFC employability credential and administrative rule IKFC-R employability credential. I move that the board approve policy IKFC employability credential and administrative rule IKFC-R employability credential.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor from Dr. Powers. Do I have a second? Okay, we now have a second from Ms. Green. Are there any questions or comments or anything you need to update us on, Dr. Talley? Anybody?
I would just make a point to the board that the former policy that you just acted on was amended. Mm-hmm. It was recodified because of new legislation. This policy is a brand new policy for us. It's based on the employability credential legislation, and that's what it speaks to. The administrative rule, in other words, it gives a pathway for students with disabilities who are not going to earn a diploma, high school diploma. It also outlines in the administrative rule, which we're required to do, the pathway, meaning the credits, the courses that a student who's seeking this employability credential would achieve upon matriculating from high school.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments for Dr. Talley or Dr. Balo?
I was just going to make a comment. So this policy addition is in response to legislation that was passed I believe, about a year ago, right?
That's right, not quite a year ago, that's right.
When I was preparing for the legislative report, I was reading through bills that have been filed this year, and a legislator has filed, several actually, has sponsored a bill to require an employment certificate for this exact thing that has already been passed, which was kind of interesting that they have proposed something that actually is already a law.
If I could take a point of personal privilege and give a lot of credit to Dr. Balo and her team. They worked really hard and were very excited about this legislation, put a lot of thought into this, and if I could say, I feel like Lexington 1 is a leader in this particular area.
That's great.
A question and I guess an educational moment for myself. Number one, do the students remain at their home school throughout? I mean, this does not apply to certain schools or anything like that. If this were a student of Lexington High School, the student stays at Lexington High School, is that, or?
They would stay at their school. What it would require us to do is, and we've already begun working on that, is finding placements for them that meets the criteria of the law where they could get experience in a work setting.
And that was actually the educational point I was hoping for. So we have resources available within the school to reach out to the community for employability and those kind of things?
I'm smiling at Dr. Balo because she came into my office last Friday very excited. She had just met, I think getting coffee maybe, or in a restaurant, a person who's just opened an ice cream, smoothie business, and she happens to be a former director of special ed. And so they chatted, and she gave Dr. Baylor her card, and she can't wait to hire some of our students to work in her business.
Thank you, Dr. Towell.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions or comments, board? Okay, hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries, and it is unanimous. Board, we will now turn to 11.0, which is the superintendent's report, and I know there's a lot of good things going on, Dr. Little, so we're looking forward to hearing your report this month. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Little for his report.
Well, thank you very much. Of course, we've got some very interesting things on the report tonight, but I do want to also just echo, again, thank you so much for all of your service as school board members. We greatly appreciate that, and for all that you do for our community. We really appreciate it. So I just wanted to echo that again. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Salters tonight so we can talk about Beechwood Middle School. I see Ms. Jenkinson in the audience, and so I know there's a lot of excitement about what we're going to talk about. So, Mr. Salters.
Thank you, Dr. Little. Members of the board, of course, tonight we are here for first reading of the attendance lines for Beechwood Middle School, but before we do that, I'd like to briefly show you some pictures of the campus. It's changing every day, even though it seems to be a rainforest over that site. Somehow we got a picture with the sun shining. It might be photoshopped. But you can see a lot of progress has been made since the board was last out on a visit. This is a front view of the school. We've got our main entry right there in the middle of that shot, and you can see the roof deck is covering all of the building now, which helps us. We now have some windows installed, and those are continuing to come in, which helps us get it dried in, and we'll really hopefully start to turn some heat on here soon. But you can see the site conditions we're dealing with, a lot of mud around the perimeter of the site, but the contractor's doing a great job continuing the progress despite that torrential rain that we've continued to have. This is a shot of the main entry. We'll have our secured entrance there. Will be the primary point of entry for our parents and students. This is a view of the courtyard. You're actually looking on the right-hand side there at the media center, and then on the left are two art classrooms that have a view out of that courtyard space. This is the cafeteria space on the right here. We'll have some outside dining opportunities for our students on pretty days like this one was. Interior, the main interior space there, the right will be our media center, and this is the main stairwell going up to the second floor. You see the windows in that wall, those are highlighted in the theme of ones and zeros, and hopefully modifying that coding theme that we'll have at this school and STEM opportunities that I know that the students will see many of as they enter the walls here. This is a shot looking back the other way out towards the main entrance. The front office area is right there in the bottom of that view. And we lost the presentation. Josh, can you get it? Maybe. You need me to hit something? Maybe you did. That's why I messed up. All right. So that's a shot looking out into the media center. Hopefully we'll continue on here. Again, from the second story in the media center area there. And then this is a shot from the cafeteria. Those are the serving lines on the far wall there. And then as we do at many of our middle schools, we have a little elevated stage area there. And then this is in the performing arts little theater. So looking back from the stage onto the into the sound room there. This is a shot of the stage area. About a 500-seat little theater, which is comparable in size to other middle schools of this size. This is the gymnasium. We're glad to see actually a dry floor there. It's been almost like a pool for a while with water in there. And one of our band rooms. So those are the shots we have. I'll be glad to answer any questions about the construction before we move into the attendance lines if you have any. Okay.
I think I ask you this every time, but I just like to say it out loud. This is a prototype school, and this is the school we will be building out in Pelion.
That's correct.
Yeah.
This will be used 2 more times in the current building plan. It'll be for the Pelion Middle School replacement and also the Lexington Middle School replacement.
Thank you.
And we are slated to open on time, so that's the best news. So talking about Beechwood, I'm sorry.
On time with 100 days, over 100 days of rain.
Yes, sir.
That this contractor has stayed on schedule.
Yes, sir. Doing an excellent job. Talking about attendance lines, which is becoming quite the conversation most folks are interested in these days in our community. So tonight I bring you first reading of these attendance lines. And just to kind of remind you, when we're drawing attendance lines, we have some rationale that we use. We try to use our facilities efficiently. We want to use our permanent spaces as efficiently as possible. We try to minimize the division of subdivisions, so we try not to go through a subdivision and split students from that neighborhood into different schools. We consider balance of student demographics. We do allow for future student growth in our permanent facilities. So the idea is that you may not fill up a new building right away because you know growth is going to occur around that facility. We do consider transportation patterns, focusing on safe travel. So we look at do I have to take a right out of this neighborhood or do I have to take a left out of this neighborhood? Those kind of things. And take those situations into account. We utilize natural and major road boundaries where possible, so rivers and streams, major roadways to divide up attendance lines. And of course, the goal in this exercise is to provide reduced enrollment at Lexington Middle, Michelin Middle, and Pleasant Hill Middle. And you'll see that we're able to affect that. So these are the current boundaries. For the 3 middle schools. You can see Pleasant Hill at 12:05. This morning we were actually, Matt Warren and I were working on this presentation, and that was at 12:04. He pulled the number again, it was 12:05. They enrolled a student today. Lexington Middle School was 998, and even better than Pleasant Hill, Meta-Glen was at 10:30 yesterday. And today we pulled the number and it was 1040. So they actually enrolled 10 students in that period of time. So, it's really amazing the shift in enrollment that occurs in our communities. So you can see a large number of students split across those 3 current facilities, and we are working to alleviate that. And so these are the proposed attendance lines that we're putting for you out tonight for first reading. And I'll speak on the feeder patterns on the next slide, but basically what we've done in the Beechwood attendance area is we've taken all of the Rocky Creek Elementary School students and put them in Beechwood Middle. We've also taken all of Lake Murray Elementary and put them in Beechwood Middle, and then a portion of New Providence goes to Beechwood Middle. And so if that line running down the middle of the screen there looks familiar to you, this line, you can see my red pointer there, that is our high school boundary. And so on the left side of that boundary is the Lexington High School attendance area. On the right side of that boundary is the River Bluff attendance area. One of the key things that our middle schools were asking us to look at in this rezoning effort is to create a true feeder pattern for these middle schools. At elementary schools, it's not as important to have a true feeder, but in middle schools, you start getting into performing arts, you start getting into high school athletics. And so currently in this pattern now, Lexington Middle School, that line, that high school boundary is right here. And so a portion of the Lexington Middle School students go to Lexington High, and a portion go to River Bluff. And so in this proposal, we have true feeders. The interesting thing about this is that if you do the math, there are 1,617 students here, and excuse me, and I think it's 1,606 on this side. So there are 11 students roughly that are in the balance there between the two groupings. So these are projected numbers, and so a lot of factors go into what this will look like next year. One obviously is the growth in these communities. Another is the impact of grandfathering. We'll talk about that here in just a second. And so these are the best guesses that we have at this point of estimation. We have involved our consultant, Malone and McBroom, in this process. Those are the folks who did our original growth study. And so we feel good about, these lines and what they accomplish for our students going forward. So if you look at the middle school feeder pattern breakdown, as I mentioned earlier, Beechwood Middle, we have Rocky Creek, Lake Murray, and then a portion of New Providence. Lexington Middle School actually takes in a portion of New Providence, a portion of Lexington Elementary, a portion of Midway, and a portion of Meadow Glen. And then Meadow Glen also takes a portion of Meadow Glen Elementary, Midway, and Oak Grove. And then Pleasant Hill takes in all of Pleasant Hill Elementary and a portion of Deerfield and Lexington Elementary. Excuse me. And then in the high school feeder pattern, as I mentioned, you have a true feeder. So Beechwood, all of Beechwood goes to Lexington High, all of Lexington Middle goes to River Bluff, all of Meadow Glen goes to River Bluff, and all of Pleasant Hill would go to Lexington High School. And so, as I mentioned, for grandfathering, in the past, as we've done these rezoning efforts, we have allowed the students who are the kind of the senior class, if you will, at the given grade level to be able to have a choice to stay and or go to their new place. And so current 7th graders that are affected by the rezoning in each of these locations have the option to stay at their current school for the 8th grade year. We do not provide transportation, or no special bus routes are available for those students because we will be running routes for the new schools within those areas. But if they can provide transportation, they do have the ability to stay in that current school. And we have some key dates. This is a very community-driven effort. We want community input in this process, and so tonight is the first date that we're working through, first reading here. We have 3 community input meetings. Board members, if you'll jot these dates down, we would love for your participation at these meetings. Lexington Middle School on the 29th, Pleasant Hill on the 30th, and then Meadow Glen on the 31st. Trying to get all 3 communities, within the week, so they all kind of get the information at the same time. We'll do a brief presentation, and then we'll have stations set up so that community members can come and ask questions. And then also there's a feedback form that we will collect feedback at these meetings. We will assimilate that feedback, share that with the board, and also get input from you guys on your thoughts, and we'll bring that for second reading at your normal board meeting in February. And then again, go through and hear additional feedback and considerations, and then bring for third and final reading on the March board meeting. This has a lot of implications for staffing, as you can imagine. Mr. Stacy is heavily involved with the staff at the schools, and then Mr. Butler, from a budgeting standpoint, also involved in FTE allocation and so forth. So there's a lot of things that have to happen after these lines are finalized. But with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you guys may have.
But before the board asks a question, would
Yes,
you
sir.
do me a favor? Would you go back to the proposed attendance lines?
Yes, sir.
And talk about the major land areas on how you tried to break it up out beyond just the high school zone, very quickly.
Sure. So just to orient you, if I can get the pointer, there it goes. It's on the 900 right now, if you can see it. And so Highway 1 is here, right here. 378 is going to be right here. Obviously, Beechwood sits on 378. So that gives you an idea of the area there. We've got Pleasant Hill Middle School sitting right here. So you've got Raw Road in here. And, of course, this being I-20 down here, major, highway, interstate, you can see there. My pointer is now over here on 728. And so we've made some adjustments where we've picked up, Pleasant Hill used to be this huge attendance area up through here. And so we've shifted a little bit of Pleasant Hill this way to pick up this high school attendance line. And then we've shifted some of Lexington Middle School over. Mineral Springs Road is right in here. And so we've shifted this line over to pick up some of the Meadow Glen schools, Meadow Glen students, and then some of this area here up towards the lake as well. And so 378 obviously continues on through here, and then you've got Corley Mill. The main road that you would be interested in here is Mineral Springs, where that line is shifted over. And we haven't changed anything on the perimeter. For your reference. So all of these outer boundary lines, this will be the Gilbert community here. You get into Carolina Springs Middle here, and you get into White Knoll Middle over here. These boundaries have not changed at all. Of course, that's our district boundary over here on the right-hand side. But none of the perimeter boundaries have changed.
Mr. Salters, I seem to recall several months ago talking about the attendance lines just theoretically. And this looks like it's going to accomplish what you had mentioned, which was for those Rocky Creek parents that were taking one student that way and one student that way to Pleasant Hill Middle. Now their elementary and middle schools are at least in the same direction for those that are on this side of Highway 1.
Right, and so some of the early discussions that we had, we looked at some options for, basically dividing that area here. And if you do that, you're going to potentially have Rocky Creek Elementary, which these folks are Rocky Creek Elementary. They could potentially have to go up here to Rocky Creek and then come back down here to Pleasant Hill to drop a student off. And so in this scenario, these folks will come right up Cox Ferry Road, which is right here, come up Cox Ferry, drop off at Rocky Creek, hit Spring Hill, and drop off at Beechwood. So it keeps the traffic flow in a consistent pattern. It will also make a big difference, those folks who are on the Pleasant Hill campus in the mornings. Pleasant Hill is about 1,200 students now, as I said, so it's going to make a big difference not having that many students in that drop-off in the morning for those folks.
One of our goals, as we're all aware, is reduce our use of portables. So I presume this redistribution will eliminate the need for portables?
It should at Pleasant Hill for now.
Okay.
For now. At Meta Glen, at Meta Glen, we may still have a few portables. And as you recall, we are going to be able to replacement school here for Lexington Middle School. So right now it's 728 students, and eventually when that school opens, of course it's a model after this Beechwood School, which is an initial capacity of 1,200 students. You will see some transition from Meta Glen over to Lexington Middle School as soon as additional capacity is created with that new facility, and then at that point we should be able to accommodate all the students at Meta Glen without portables. So that's the goal. You'll have two larger capacity schools, one in each kind of high school attendance zone, if you will, and then one a little bit smaller capacity with Pleasant Hill and Meta Glen supporting the students in those areas. It's pretty interesting how closely split the population is and how consistent the growth is on both sides of that high school attendance line.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised the numbers are as close as they are because,
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty shocking. So.
Yeah.
Mr. Salters, can we talk about the mechanics of this for a minute? I know in the past we've had on our website, you've had the ability, I believe, to plug in either your address or your neighborhood, and you could see exactly what your house or home is zoned for. Will we have that uploaded so people can see that pretty quickly?
Yes, ma'am, we will. We will have a link. I believe it's going to go live. I'm looking for Matt. He was out here. It's going to go live tomorrow, I think. Yeah, we have a link where we can actually make it live. We'll do that tomorrow, and that allows people to go in and look at these lines and their current lines as well. So they'll be able to check their address, and it'll pop up what school they're zoned for.
Okay, and then going back through the mechanics again, we will have 3 readings for this.
Yes.
And so tonight's the first reading, and I would like to let the community know that we're very interested in their feedback. I'm an old timer. I've been on the board 18 years, and I've been through many of these. I had one man tell me he wanted to punch me in the face. And if Miss Mitchum is still here, I think she left. She was standing beside me, and all of a sudden she was gone. I don't know where she went. So people do get a little heated about this, but my point being, we are very interested in your feedback. We are very interested in what you have to say, and we're very interested in how this impacts your child in your neighborhood. So at these meetings, we're going to have forms that you can fill out and tell us, your concerns. And if you love it, we want to hear that as well. You can also go online and fill the forms out. And then at the additional readings, we welcome your public comments. We ask that you come and share your thoughts with us if you have a thought about it. And Ms. Jenkinson, I know, is going to be our principal at our new school. She welcomes hearing any concerns or questions you may have as well. But this is a group enterprise. We're not saying this is the final product. And I can honestly say, in my 18 years of serving on the school board, not once has the board voted on the original lines, because we listen to you and we want to know what you think and what you say. I can remember one of my very first ones. We had a neighborhood that they literally could not turn left out of their neighborhood once the traffic started going. And it was a big neighborhood, and they asked us to change the line because they wanted to be able to turn right. And believe me, we hear that, and we know, because traffic in the morning in Lexington is not easy. So we want your feedback. We want to know what you think, and we will take that very seriously when we come to vote on the final product. But as you see, we've got a lot of steps to get there, and we hope you'll attend the meetings and give us your feedback. Is there anything I left out, Mr. Salters?
No, ma'am. I would just like to say that additionally, Ms. Hill in the Communications Department will be doing a press release with this information, I believe later tonight or tomorrow. And, you know, this presentation will be available online as well. So folks can get to the link and actually, if they can't read this map, they can just put their address in, but you can also see this map and the presentation for additional input. So it's really a team effort. Matt Warren in my office is done tons of work behind the scenes with this. Really appreciate his efforts. And then our communications department getting involved and really supporting us through the communication effort here. So we're looking forward to the community input and, you know, happy to answer any other questions that the board may have
Well,
tonight.
I think it looks good. It's really clean. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I like that you use the major boundaries. And I think the things that we've always been known for in Lexington 1, that we grandfather the children if they want to be grandfathered, and the fact that we don't divide neighborhoods, I think speaks volumes for us staying committed to our families and our children. Board, are there any other questions or comments, Dr. Guyton?
Yeah, it's funny you bring up left turns, because left turns out of an elementary school are tough. And with this, you're having to turn left out of Rocky Creek and having to turn left out of Lake Murray to make your way back to Beechwoods if it's an absolute feeder, which makes sense. I mean, don't get me wrong. But I guess the question is, how do y'all go about evaluating when is the time to put, for example, an officer there to direct traffic and those kind of things? Because right now, a lot of Rocky Creek parents feed to the right, going to Pleasant Hill Middle, with a lot of the southern neighborhoods, you know, home south of Rocky Creek. Now all of a sudden you're going to shift that to a left-hand turn, and it can be quite It can be quite trying to make a left-hand.
Correct. So your question is, how do we evaluate for an officer to be put there? We look at that each year, and you know, as you're aware, each year, you know, we have different populations of students who ride the bus and different populations of students whose parents drop off, and so we evaluate that with the county if it's a county school, and with the town if they're in the town, to look at the traffic flow and the overall impact of traffic on the sites. Generally, the first week of school, we try to get as much help there as we can.
That's a great week, by the way.
Right. And then the further along we get into that, you know, pattern, if you will, we'll make some adjustments. I'll be honest with you, sometimes the town has more resources to help us with the town schools than the county does. And so we try where we can to provide county assistance, but they're stretched a little more thin, and so some of our county schools, it's harder to get those deputies out there directing traffic. But it is something that we consider, and you know, we will work with the agency to help us through that process.
One thing, if I could add too, is that in this particular instance, having a school closer to your home typically reduces other traffic areas. So for example, my wife drops the kids off at Pleasant Hill in the morning. That's a tough left on the Rawl. And when you're coming out of there, it's an even more impossible left coming back. So this is going to eliminate those Rocky Creek folks driving across town to come over here. So in lots of ways, it's going to reduce traffic. Is the lesson that I've taken from this. By being able to build the more neighborhood style school, you're reducing the drive from, say, Kelsey Glen all the way over to Pleasant Hill.
We've got parents who now come in front of Lexington High School that won't do that anymore. So you're creating traffic for other schools by where schools are located. So by putting those parents over at Beechwood, they'll stay isolated to that area and won't cross over, and that can help as well.
Board, any other questions or comments?
Yes, in the past, we usually had maps and proposed attendance lines out back for people to pick up. What's the reason for not doing that this time?
Mr. Salters?
We posted it online. We can produce those maps as well.
Trying to be green.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a problem. We'll certainly have those available at our community meetings.
Okay, any other questions or comments, Board? Okay. Well, thank you, because I know that is a lot of work, and I want to thank you and Mr. Warren and everybody else that worked on that, because That is not an easy thing. And once again, if I could just say to the community, we so welcome your comments and thoughts, and we will definitely take them into account. We're going to continue on with the superintendent's report. So, Dr. Little?
Sure. So this next report, we're pretty excited about what we're getting ready to see. So, our vision statement is to empower each child to design the future. And sometimes that means to design that future through academics. But we also recognize that our students have other needs as well, and that in order to empower them to design the future, that we build a support system for our families that may look different in some areas than others. And so Mr. Caldwell has a presentation tonight that he's going to talk to us about an exciting partnership with some of our medical professionals and about how we can help design the future for some of our students. So, Mr. Caldwell.
Thank you, Dr. Little. Madam Chair, members of the board, in deference to the time and I'm sure everybody's wishes here this evening, I will be brief, but I do not want my brevity to be misinterpreted as not a lack of excitement or how thrilled we are to have this partnership with Palmetto Health to increase the access of care to students through the telehealth work. The best way to describe this, our friends in Richardson 1 already do this. There is a video on YouTube that's available. It's about 3 minutes. And I think if I show that video, it will kind of give you an idea of what this telehealth is about. And I'll be glad to answer any questions at the conclusion. We are currently working our way toward this, and hopefully later in the spring we will start this for our schools in the Pillion area, the 4 Pillion schools.
When Cameron was seen at telehealth, the nurse called me in, and I came in under the impression, thinking I was going to sign him out, take him to his doctor's office, and get him treated. She told me about telehealth, and I had to fill out the form, so she kind of like gave me a brief description of what it does, and that he would be able to see a nurse practitioner through a screen, and she can diagnose him right there at the school.
She had brought the computer in front of both of us. Then she had to call the nurse at the hospital, then she told me what I had.
It was very helpful for me because I didn't have to worry about taking off from work. I didn't have to worry about signing him out of school and he missing that day. And I didn't have to worry about trying to find like where I can take him because his doctor's office don't do same day appointments. So I would have had to end up taking him to the emergency room, which is very time consuming.
When I saw the doctor through telehealth, it was new and exciting because I always had to go to a hospital or my doctor.
The telehealth process works by having a student enter the health room. I perform my normal nursing duties. If I feel that child should be seen with telehealth and if they've consented to telehealth, then I will contact the nurse practitioner. Telehealth has been amazing for me because I've been able to be hands-on with the diagnosing aspect of it all, to actually be here to assist the nurse practitioner, and with her guidance, I've been able to help her with diagnosing these different conditions that the students have had.
I would tell other parents that telehealth is convenient. It's an awesome program. It saves time and money. You don't have to worry about getting off from work, picking your child up and taking them to the pediatrician or to their doctor's office. You can get the same results right at the school in the nurse's office.
Again, there's no way I could have explained it better than that. That's what we will begin this spring at the Pillion schools, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Will they have parameters? Like, I mean, I'm going to defer to our two physicians on our board, but I mean, like, if somebody, like, what's the limit? Like, would they do a cold or they do, you know?
Well, what will happen, because our school nurses can't diagnose or prescribe, a student comes to the nurse, and the nurse, using her judgment that maybe the child has described symptoms of strep throat, to use that as an example. She'll contact telehealth, a nurse practitioner, or even a physician's assistant, perhaps even a physician, probably a nurse practitioner, would say, yes, those symptoms do sound like strep throat. Let me order for you a quick strep test. I don't know if that's the actual name of that. The school nurse will be able to do the swab, do the test. They'll wait a few minutes. If it is a positive result, then the nurse practitioner can prescribe the medication. They'll contact the parents, they meaning telehealth. They'll contact the pharmacy that we have on file when the parents did the paperwork. They'll contact the parents, so the parents will come to pick up the child, and on the way home, stop by the pharmacy. So there's no leaving work, coming to the school, not being able to get to your primary physician until the next day, or having to go to the emergency room, all those things. So it'll be the judgment of the nurse to decide, is this a telehealth?
How do we contract with the vendor that provides the service, and then also who pays for that?
Palmetto Health will work through the insurance. If the student has insurance, we will do the paperwork for if it's Medicaid. If a student doesn't have insurance, they will not be denied the service, and Palmetto Health will try to plug the family into an insurance carrier, or it's my understanding they have a fund that they can help to pay for uninsured students. The bottom line is we would never turn a student down for the service.
So what if a student has different insurance, and would we contact their provider and go through telehealth, or it's just strictly through that contract? Or we would tell that parent to go to their own provider?
I'm not 100% sure of the answer to this question. I don't know that they are contracted with particular insurance companies. I'm not sure how that part of that works, but it could be that the insurance that a parent has does not pay for telehealth services, and I think at that point we would
call the parent, and they would come get the child. Okay. Any questions, board? Any comments?
There'll be a lot of communication with the parents, obviously, and paperwork and consents and things that have to be completed before the student would be seen.
Dr. Guyton, does your office do telehealth?
So this is a tough one. This is actually sort of a dividing line in medicine right now, in that there is an absolute element of convenience. There's an element of providing a need, and to be very conscientious of a parent's time and getting off of work and missed days of work, so on and so forth. On the flip side, there's also the lost art of medicine, if you will, the actual laying of hands on a patient, so to speak. Case that comes to mind, I got a call one time from the ER, go down and listen to the kid, was billed as a routine viral stomach bug. Within 6 hours, the kid was on a heart transplant list because of what we had heard on the exam. We had him flown down to MUSC within 2 hours. And so that's my fear of telehealth, in that it's only going to take a few of those, and it's going to uncover a very nasty wound, if you will. So I think there are some very well-placed kind of cookbook medicine things that I think fit very well. The hard part's going to be funneling that down into what are those cookbook things that are very easily identified and treated. And it's tough. I mean, we continually evaluate it. Should we or should we not kind of jump into the telehealth game, if you will? And we just haven't been able to answer those questions yet in terms of comfort.
Thank you.
So.
Do you have a question, Ms.
I do. What kind of impact does this have on our nursing staff, since they'll be doing complete exams?
That is a great question. Currently, we're not planning for any additional FTE or requesting any additional FTE. If this takes off and it is used a lot, then we may need to consider that, because our nurses, once they contact telehealth, they are still plugged in and involved with that student, and so we don't want other students to back up. But in talking with folks at Palmetto Health, that hasn't been a big issue at other sites. It could be with us. It just depends on the utilization of it.
And Mr. Caldwell, you're doing this just in Peolean right now, right?
We're
So
piloting
kind of
it
a
at
pilot,
Pigginsville, that's
so we
exactly
can
right.
evaluate
Yeah.
some of these questions
That's right.
we have.
That's exactly right.
To me, I mean, I recognize the professionals' concerns, but I think, as we make mental health counselors available in our schools and this telehealth. I mean, I really, especially for Peoria and being a rural school, I mean, I can't help but think that this would be valuable for parents who may have, they may work in Columbia and have to drive out to Peoria to pick up their student to take them to doctor's care on, on Sunset Boulevard. And so I'm excited to see what the pilot shows.
Have you been working closely with your counterpart at Richland 1 to find out the pros and cons that they've experienced?
Our lead nurse, Director of Nursing, Amy Wood, has, and also with folks at Palmetto Health. We've had several meetings, and I'm not saying they're in constant contact, but they communicate regularly through this process.
Okay. And this is at no cost to the district, is that
That's correct. It all started with I think MUSC received a grant, and they formed an alliance with a lot of schools in the Low Country, and formed an alliance with Palmetto Health here in the Midlands, and that's how Richland 1 got on board, and that's how we came into play.
Well, I'm sure we'll work through our consent process, but I think as a board, we would want to make sure it was clear it wasn't compulsory, and that they are choosing this.
Absolutely.
Because then it's now back on Palmetto Health for the risk of the diagnosis and treatment.
And even if we have the consent form on file, when a student comes to the nurse's office, we would still make every effort to contact the parent, even though we know there's a consent on file. We would contact them prior to telehealth if at all possible.
Oh, so process-wise, is the parent would consent to a telehealth evaluation even before they knew that their child was ill?
They would have consented to that on the paperwork on the front end.
Okay.
But at the moment that the child is seeking treatment, even though they would have consented weeks ago when they did the paperwork, we would still contact the parent before the telehealth treatment.
Okay. Anything else, board? Well, thank you, Mr. Caldwell. That's very informative, and that video was very interesting. Dr. Little, we're going to continue with you.
All right, I believe we have a legislative update. Miss Green, are you going to provide some of that information? Okay.
So I'm going to start, and Madam Chair, board members, Dr. Little and guests, we're going to start at the state level where education spent some time in the spotlight with Governor Henry McMaster's when he included education reform in his inaugural speech on Wednesday, the 9th. So he mentioned several areas that Lexington District 1 is already focused on, such as recruiting good teachers, upping teacher pay with our Drive to 35, as Dr. Little calls it, starting salary increase work that we've been doing, and staffing schools with mental health counselors, just as we're doing with our Project Hope initiative. So the legislature began its regular session, if you remember, on the day before the inauguration. And as you remember, this is the first of a 2-year session. So this will be the first year. So anything that any bill that was proposed in the last legislative session, the last 2-year session, that did not make it all the way through, in effect did what we call die. So any legislator who had a bill like that had to start all over again. So that has led members to reintroduce a lot of bills, just like you mentioned before, Ms. Green, from last year. And you'll find this interesting, in fact, that since the House had their December 18th pre-file day, they have introduced 485 bills. And the Senate, on the other hand, since its December 8th pre-file date, has introduced 365. So as you might expect, many of them, as you can tell from media coverage, deal with education issues such as the teacher salaries, testing, starting date for the school year, school safety. There's been shuffling with some of the leaders in some of the committees. So in the House Representative Lucas was again elected Speaker of the House, and but he immediately made some changes to committee assignments, including a change in the House Ways and Means Committee chair. So Representative Merle Smith from Sumter now serves as chair. Representative Rita Allison from Spartanburg, who's been a friend of education, was reelected to the position of chair of the House Education Committee. And Representatives Paula Calhoun and Chris Wooten, both from Lexington, are now serve on that committee. So that's very good for us and for a way for us to get our message in. In the Senate, on the other hand, Senator Harvey Peeler, as you know, became president of the Senate. So that meant that the Senate Education Committee will begin the session with a new chair, who's Representative Greg Hembry from the Horry County area. Now, Representative Shane Massey, who is listed as Edgefield, does represent the Gilbert area, a good portion of the Gilbert area for us. And so he's one of the committee's newest members on that side. But you can get
And as an aside, his wife is a school board member.
Yes, and you can get a complete list of the Senate Education, but all those committee members on the state's legislative website. Now, we promised you that we would give our board an opportunity to talk about the highlights from the South Carolina School Boards Association's annual legislative conference, which was held in early December. And Vice Chair Anne Marie Greens agreed to do that. And in addition, she was there today, so she might have something else to add.
I do. Thank you, Ms. Hill. So early in December each year, the School Board Association holds a legislative advocacy conference. And there's kind of two purposes for that. One is to make school board members across the state aware of what's kind of on the landscape, the chatter among representatives and senators about what could impact public schools. And then the second part of that is for school board members. The School Board Association lobbies on behalf of school districts. All 81 school districts in South Carolina are members of the South Carolina School Board Association, and that association has a very strong lobbying arm and very effective and very respected at the State House. And part of what we do at the December legislative conference is during a delegate assembly, school board members from throughout the state vote on our priorities so that when questions come up, the bill or a discussion in a hearing, the lobbyists for the School Board Association know how we want them to advocate on behalf of school boards and public schools in South Carolina. So it's a really important conference, and a lot of things come out of that, but I'll just share with you the 5 priorities that the delegates, the school board members from throughout the state set for this year. The first, and these are not necessarily priority order, education funding reform, which is always a topic every year. Local district fiscal impact statements, and what that is a resolution from the School Board Association to require legislators to do a fiscal impact analysis anytime a bill is proposed that will impact a school district, which I think is a smart idea. One of the priorities is local legislation, and that requires, or that proposes to require, that a representative or a senator contact every member of their local school board before they file legislation that impacts that school board, which would be great. Yes. Also, school start date is a big priority for the School Board Association. And then the retired teacher salary cap is also one of our top 5 priorities. There are other priorities and statements of belief that we have passed to guide their arguments and their lobbying, but those are kind of the 5 priorities. I was at the State House today during Governor McMaster's budget announcement, and one of the things that happens is the governor, a lot of the education bills, the funding bills, haven't even been filed yet because our state legislators are Republicans and governor is Republican, and so they're waiting to find out what his priorities are before they file legislation to accomplish what his goals are. And one of the things that he proposed today as part of his budget recommendations, executive budget, was to increase the base student cost by $10. And I just did a little bit of research on that because that's really not very much. And in the past 8 years, even though education funding has not been terrific, in the past 8 years, our 8-year average base student cost increase has been $107 each year. So, some years it's been really high, some years it's been, $18 or $19, but to propose $10 really is just astonishing that that's what he wrote into his recommendation. Some of the other things that let's see, I've got it right here. He proposed a 5% across the board salary increase for teachers. When you go through there are all kinds of bills that have been pre-filed already or filed, but you've got to read all the way to the bottom, and some of them sound like really good ideas. There's a bill right now to require local school boards to give teachers a 15% pay increase, period. There's no funding with it. So we would have to do it without any funding. And they really like to do that, to require us to do things without actually giving us money. He also proposed $46 million to provide an SRO for school districts that aren't able to pay for their own. There are a number of school safety bills that have been proposed. He also proposed $100 million for joint education and commerce infrastructure in school districts that, in the poorest school districts in the state. But when you read down into that, it sounds like it's for school construction, and it's $100 million. Well, you know, our building package is $363 million for our district alone. So $100 million for 22 school districts isn't going to go very far. But what he's done is he has designated in his proposal that this money goes to the Commerce Department to spend as they see fit to enhance the education landscape in these 22 districts. So they can use it for business incentives, they can use it to improve sewer or, you know, internet access in those areas, or to repair school buildings, but they don't, that's not compulsory. The Commerce Department can use that $100 million however they choose to improve those districts. So it's an interesting year. There's a lot of talk about education at the State House, and this is going to be a really good year for advocacy and phone calls and emails. So just kind of stay tuned, because we'll definitely keep you informed, because we do have a lot of our Lexington County delegation on those education committees, and they're willing to listen, and so we just need to make sure that we talk to them. So thank you.
And then just want to thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I think we're working toward a resolution that
Yes.
I know we talked into last week that I think we'll hopefully be ready in the next board meeting or two. We, you know, speaking to Lexington One support to raise teacher salaries. So
That's cool.
by our legislature. So thank you for all your leadership and work there.
You're welcome.
We look
And if
forward
you're
to
just
seeing
curious, you go out to scstatehouse.gov. There's a option for quick search, and you can just put in, like today, I searched on teacher, and 72 bills have been filed having to do directly impacting teachers in some way. And education, 252 bills. So everybody has a lot of ideas, and very, very few of them are good ideas, you know.
Or funded ideas.
Or
I mean,
funded
that's,
ideas, and some of them are really, really bad ideas. And so it really helps to kind of pay attention. There are a number of listservs that you can subscribe to that will send you updates. I know Superintendent Spearman, her office is doing a really good job of kind of blasting out information. So just pay, you know, if you're not on Twitter, get on Twitter and follow her and some of her folks, because I think this is a really important year to pay attention, because we want to make sure that what we get is what we want. And so we just need to pay attention to the details.
Ms. Green, I saw the announcement from Governor McMaster's office. Do we know, like, the money he's allocated for SROs and the 5% increase for teachers? Is it a single time money allotment, or is it recurring funds?
He has, the 5% he specified was recurring funds. The SRO money, I believe, is just a one part of that extra pot of money. And he's got there are 20 things he wants to do with that extra pot of money. Mm-hmm. He wants to do, for example, there's $100 million for the infrastructure, but there's $200 million for a tax rebate. So if you get your check for $11 in November, you know, you can give it to the Education Foundation. I mean, there are a lot of competing priorities, but there's a lot of money available this year. Yeah. Because of the budget that's expected. Just one other thing. When at our school board conference back in December, one of our presenters was Mike Rainwater with, who is he with, John? the South Carolina Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Office. Yeah, and they were tasked by, I think, a Senate committee to produce a report, factors and trends affecting state funding for public education, and it's an incredibly informative report. It takes every school district in the state and breaks it down in a bunch of different ways. If you're a data cruncher, and it'll take the number of students and how compare that to each district's funding for instruction and administration and buildings. I mean, it's probably 40 pages of report. If you're interested, I'd be happy to email the link to you because it really does kind of give you an idea of what the legislators are going to be looking at this. Hopefully they'll actually pay attention to the details. But if you're interested in it, I'd be happy to send it to you. Just see me afterwards and I'll email it to you.
That was a really good conference, and Mr. Anderson, Ms. Green, Ms. Garris, and I attended, and the other three gentlemen had prior commitments. But the thing that I just walked away with was the surplus and how they're going to spend that. I have a feeling by the time that's voted in, it will not look anything like what Governor McMaster presented today. And the other thing, just keep your eye out, it's called the Wayfair. It was a Wayfair law where, I don't know if anybody shops, but there's a company called Wayfair. And if you buy something at Wayfair in certain states now, you are not taxed. Well, they've ruled that you should be taxed. And so it's not good for the shoppers, but it's great for school districts because now, just like you go to Walmart and you pay local taxes, you'll pay local taxes for any of those products you buy on the internet. Well, that will be some income, hopefully, that will come back to our school district. So it's going to be real interesting to watch how that plays out. And that gentleman, Mr. Rainwater, was talking about that's going to be something we all need to keep an eye on because, as you know, the tax base for shopping is going down because so many people shop on the internet. And this is a way to even the playing field because it's very unfair to the moms and pops that you shop here and you go in your car and you pay taxes. You go online and you buy this stuff and you don't pay taxes. So it'll level the playing field for the moms and pops. And it will be a good thing for school districts because we will get some of our revenue back that we were getting before the internet was
and
the main
just
shopping
one other
place.
little funny anecdote I overheard today. So there's actually some folks, y'all recall that there was a big lottery ticket winner in South Carolina that hasn't come forward yet? They're actually already spending the state's portion of the unclaimed lottery money. I mean, that's part of the conversation. Well, you know, that ticket may be in a landfill somewhere, but that's how they think is that virtual money is actual money. And so, you know, when they get, you know, April 15th and all of a sudden they're dealing with real dollars, things may be a little bit different.
Yeah. But Ms. Green is our representative. She is our advocacy representative for the district. She's been doing this since she started on the board. And let's just thank her because she's doing such a good job. And Ms. Hill, we thank you too because you have to keep up with all that, and there's a lot to keep up with, so thank you for that. Dr. Little?
All right, well, that concludes my report.
Okay, great. Okay, we're now to 12.0. Board, these are items for your information. They were included in your packet. And just for information only, and item 13.0 is adjournment. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Oswald. All in favor, please say aye and stand up. Aye, and it's unanimous. Thank you.